Welcome back. You're watching One on One. We're speaking with scientist adventurer Dr. Bertrand Piccard. We talked about some of your interests and how they developed from an early age. Now, I wonder what for you were your most defining moments. What were the strongest memories from the things you've done?
When I was a kid, probably watching the launch of Apollo 11 to the moon, sitting next to Peter von Braun, the son of Werner von Braun, who had done all the Apollo space program. That was a moment where I thought, wow, there is no limit for human being. And another important moment was when I did my first hang gliding flight. I was 16, I thought everything had been done because people had gone on the moon, and suddenly I saw, wow, there's the simplest vehicle that had not been invented. And I was one of the pioneers to try that, and I thought, this is a new way to fly. And then I started to have confidence that we have to go deeper into not only what we do, but how we do it, you know, the experience of flying, not relying to instruments, but feeling that we fly. And that was the link for me between what I was doing and what I was trying to be, you know, try to experience the things directly. And of course, afterwards, the one absolute great moment was the flight around the world in a balloon. You are in the air for 20 days, you are pushed by the wind or carried inside the winds, you go all around the world, you see all the continents, all the oceans, and you're a part of nature. And you sleep there, you eat there, you do everything in the sky for 20 days non-stop. This was an extraordinary moment.
I gather it was very emotional when you were finally told you could land and it was going to be completed, that you could do it.
Yes, but landing was almost sad. Of course, we're so happy to have succeeded with Brian Jones. But when we had to land, it was the end of the adventure. And it was so beautiful, it was so peaceful. Now, when you live 20 days around the world and you feel that everything can be simple, that you are two in a very small space and you don't fight, you have no conflict, you respect each other, and suddenly you come back on the ground where you get all the news of the wars, people killing each other, all these problems, all this pollution. You say, wow, we were so well up there. And that's why we created this charity foundation with Brian Jones. We thought, okay, we were so lucky.
We
got Winds of Hope, yes. We got our dream fulfilled. We were recognized as successful explorers. Now we want to help people who are in the exact opposite situation. People who are forgotten, who are sick, who are abandoned. And we created this foundation to fight against this sickness that is called NOMA. You know, NOMA is atrocious. It's a sickness that destroys the face of children only due to the decreased immune response due to malnutrition. And we're fighting actively against this sickness, raising funds for that, going in Africa. And we have now, we fund the national programs in 6 countries of sub-Saharan Africa against that sickness.
And of course, NOMA is one that doesn't receive the same sort of high profile as AIDS, HIV/AIDS, and so on.
Exactly.
And yet, of course, quality of life and the impact.
Exactly. Almost nobody does it. So we thought that with our so-called fame, we could help to enlighten this sickness. And that's why I'm happy to have an interview now with you where I'm able to speak about it, because people just cannot imagine how atrocious it is to see a child that has no face. You see to the back of the throat through the face because the skin has fallen, the flesh has fallen, and the bones have been necrotic and fallen. And these children sometimes stay alive for years like that.
Let me ask you about your own sort of personal fears going through the kind of things you've done. When were you most scared? What was the most frightening moment for you ever?
Probably once in an aerobatic show, my hang glider broke in the air. And suddenly everything broke. And I was falling 150 kilometers per hour with the broken pieces of my hang glider hitting my face.
What altitude were you at when it happened?
I was at 900 meters. And it took 500 meters of fall before the parachute would open. The parachute got stuck in the structure, and finally with the centrifugal force it got ejected and could open. I could land on both my feet with all the wreck of my hang glider around me. And that's a moment where you thank your guardian angel to have been here.
Do you consider yourself a particularly spiritual person?
I consider myself spiritual more than religious. Religion, very often, puts conflicts between human beings because of different ways to think. Spirituality is something that maybe unites people more. It's their attempt to understand that there is something above human beings. There is a force that has created the world, and we don't really know how is this force, how is this energy, but something else exists above what we see usually. And I think beyond the obvious, there's another world that gives the meaning to what we're doing here.
You've obviously succeeded. You're respected, you're renowned, world-renowned, and have set records and broken records and goodness knows what else. Has there been a price to pay for this success that you can think of?
The price to pay is to be different than the others, different than my friends. When my friends were going in discotheques to go dancing with girlfriends at 18 years old, I was not doing that. I was flying my hang glider. And it made a gap sometime between my friends and me. And now, of course, most of my friends, they are going to the office, they're every evening at home, they're having normal, quiet life. I'm running the world to give speeches to big companies about psychology of communication, crisis management, things like that. And here, again, there is a gap. And now that I'm starting to even work more on sustainable development, renewable energies, that starts to be a gap also with the people who continue to burn too much oil, continue to behave in an unconsidered manner, in an unresponsible manner, and me who's trying to tell them, shut down the lights when you get out of home, take hybrid engines, buy new technologies to save energy. They tell me, oh, wow, you're always different. So it's not so easy, but I think exactly as you said, there is a price to pay for everything. And I accept to pay that price because I believe I'm going in the direction that I've chosen.
What is your long-term goal? What do you hope to achieve ultimately?
Ultimately, I'm going to tell you what I really want to achieve. I would like to finish this project of the solar-powered airplane, not just by having the plane flying around the world with no fuel and zero pollution. I want the people on the ground to follow this airplane, follow this adventure, and think, okay, these guys, they managed to do it in the air with no fuel around the world. How can we do the same in our daily life? How can we save energy? How can we be more respectful for the environment? How can we invest in new technologies that are going to help to reduce the impact of mankind on nature? This would be the real success for my new project. This is really what I hope. Going around the world is not enough. It has to be useful. It should be just a leverage to raise the awareness of the people and also bring them to change something in their life.
So the challenges have moved from sort of the action-adventure setting of, you know, the mountains, the sky, the water and everything else to more, I guess, global and planet and what can be done in the long term, a long-term vision as opposed to short-term adventure.
Absolutely, but I would say this was a common point also with the other generations. My grandfather, when he was interviewed after his first flight to the stratosphere, he said the question is not to know if people can go and live on other planets. The question is how to live better on this planet. And when I read that afterward, I thought, wow, I'm thinking exactly the same. And now the tools are different because we have new technologies and we can use them to save the planet. Of course, in 1931, it was the full industrial boom and it was useless to try to find other technologies.
How do you want to be remembered? What would you like your legacy to be?
I would like to be remembered as someone who did his best to contribute to a better life for the future generations. And this is why Solar Impulse is so important to me. Of course, going around the world in the balloon, that was fun, it was a dream, but it was not really useful. I would like really to use all my experience in order to show how attractive, how sexy, how positive, how interesting sustainable development can be. Sustainable development should not be a threat to the people in terms of mobility and comfort. It should be an opportunity people take in order to be more successful, more profitable, and of course, also more respectful to the environment. But it has to be a whole. And if I can contribute to that, I would be very happy.
I wish you all the best in these fantastic projects you're doing. Thank you very much, Bertrand.
Thank you for allowing me to share all this with you and your spectators.